Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Heart of a Champion series presented to you by the WPBA. It's the Heart of a Champion where we allow our champions to tell their story so they can impact future generations with their story. I'm your host and your ambassador, TJ Baker. I'm so excited to be a part of this journey with some amazing, extraordinary women. And just so happens that we're going to start the series off with somebody who's been super duper impactful with my life. Ladies and gentlemen, this native California individual, this woman she's a mentor. She's an inspiration. She has a story. She's been featured in so many publications. After she left her days in California, she went over to the real HU, Howard University, and she's been a pillar for education and so many different things in the community. She's the real Olivia Pope. There's no situation that Miss Roz can't take care of, ladies and gentlemen, and she's been a blessing to my life. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Rosalind Overstreet Gonzalez, aka Miss Roz. Hey, Miss Roz, how are you today?
Hey, TJ, I'm well. Thank you for that introduction. I think you were doing too much, but I appreciate it.
Oh, that's about right. So in 2016, I came to the nation's capital and I met a mutual friend of ours by the name of Miss CJ. And she said, there's somebody I have to introduce you to. And I was like, okay, sure. And I moved to DC for a job opportunity with education. And when I first got into my other business, I didn't charge or know anybody. So I was just doing a whole bunch of free events, and we sat down and we had lunch. And then all of a sudden I began to get all these phone calls, this person, that person. Oh, Ross said to call you. Ross said that you're going to do this. And next thing you know, I'm in front of Nick Cannon and doing this event and that event. And I'm saying, and I spoke to my partner, I said, who is this lady? Ms. Ross, you're definitely a dot connector. I want you to answer this question for me. When did you realize that you were just that person? Like your abundance of networks, you're special and you're unique.
Once again, you're being too kind. I have to honestly say, when CJ told me about you, and she said, you have to meet TJ, I was like, why would he want to meet me? What can I add? And I still don't feel like, my additions have been anything more than you would have done for me or anybody else. But I think I realized that I value relationships. I nurture them, and it doesn't matter in what capacity. The bottom line is, we're all human beings. We all want to be connected. We all want to be treated well. We all want to have family, and we want these relationships to last. So I think, when I meet people, I don't consider it luck. I don't consider it good fortune. I consider it destiny. We were destined to meet. Absolutely. And so when that happens, I nurture, I value, I appreciate that relationship. So if I meet you and you give me your card and I tell you I'm going to call you, I'm going to call you. Absolutely. And so that is I guess the one thing I learned from my dad, that no one is a stranger and everyone you meet can add value to your life. And if you don't necessarily get value from them, you can add value to theirs. So I kind of stand by on that principle.
Absolutely. So let's talk about values. Let's back some things up. Coming from California, you went to a very prestigious school growing up, and you came to the mecca of HBCUs in Howard. When and what part of your life did you realize how valuable education was and is going to be for you to impact your life?
I grew up probably like so many folks with your parents saying, you're going to go to college. And so that was seared in my mind, and I knew that was going to happen, but I certainly had my eyes set on the junior college in San Bernardino, California, or maybe one of the universities in the Cal State University system. But my mother decided, after talking to one of her friends who was from back east and who had been educated back east, one, you're going back east to go to college, but two, you're going to Howard University. I had never really heard of Howard University. I had no idea that it was an HBCU. I don't even think I knew what one was back in the late 70s, early 80s when I actually came. And I set foot on that campus and found myself among, some of the brightest minds, some of the best athletes, some of the best professors, renowned, international folks. And it was hard to take it all in. In fact, I was a little bit intimidated, which made me actually not want to stay at Howard and go back to California, because I felt like I was just a guppy in an ocean. I spent my first year at Howard. I did go back home the following year, but when I returned to California, I was a big fish. I was a shark in a little pond. And I realized that I would eat all the fish and there'd be nothing left for me. So therefore came back to Howard University, realized that I had been given the chance of a lifetime, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Right.
And I stuck it out, and it was the best decision I could have made. And I am a proud Bison. I am so thankful to have had that experience of attending the Mecca.
Most superheroes have capes and they have a superpower. They may have a weapon or something. What would be Miss Roz's superpower? What would you say it is, and how would you describe it?
She has the superpower of connecting the right people at the right time, in the right place, even if she doesn't realize it. And she's starting to now like say, there's something about this, like over the last couple of years. But I've known her for like, I think if I had to, maybe like 12 or 13 years now.
Okay.
And she's done it the entire time I've known her. It doesn't matter who I bring to her, when I bring them, me, anyone else, she finds a place for them in her life and she makes sure that they're successful. So whatever their passion is, she's like, oh, I have someone you need to meet. Oh, we have a friend who recently got, into real estate, and another one who's, doing another passion side project. And she's always like, here, let me introduce you to so-and-so down the block, or let me do this. So she is amazing at just knowing who to introduce to who, and like already seeing something way ahead of, what anybody else could imagine.
What doesn't she have? I think that's the real question. Yeah, she truly is one in a million. I think a superpower that I think is widely felt. I mean, I'm sure there's many we could pull from, but everything from her compassion, her her attitude in terms of acting, like just being so motivated and doing like the doing, especially for others. And there's a special quality about her that allows anyone who knows her to also just be connected to her. Right. She's a connector. She is a force, like a network within herself. She's so generous, and I'm going on, but I think her relationship, or her capacity for relationship, and how much she gives and how much she pours into her relationships, whether it's with her family, her friends, her neighbors down the block, which I also happen to know, or her college friends, or anyone she knows. She's so happy to like connect people, and she finds genuine joy in that. And through those connections and through those relationships that she's built and continued to create through everyone that now there's like this whole network that she's created.
Yes.
So I don't think even by speaking on it, I'm doing it justice, but it really is a vast network, and that really just flows from her heart. That is her superpower. And from it is compassion, like I've said, generosity, time, sacrifice. And, I'm sure you could say the same, the love is so felt. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be her superpower.
Let's take another step back, Miss Roz, because listen, every time I'm doing an event, I look up, there go Miss Roz. Every time I could be stacking something, I look up, you're everywhere in the community. But I know that's something that's been longstanding with you. You grew up, being involved, being a debutante, being involved in just so many different things. Talk to, as a champion, talk to some of our younger champions who are watching and taking notes. How important is it to get involved and at an early age, and how that can spiral into other things come adulthood?
Involvement, sharing your talents is crucial. All of your talents, your voice, your ability to write, your ability to sing, those were gifts that were given to you. And they're not gifts that you get to hold and be selfish with. They're gifts that you must give to others. And so that's how I feel about my experience with the community. You and I have met in so many events where young people are. Right. And young people are often looking for, someone to look up to, someone who they can pattern their life after, or just somebody who's going to give them a word of encouragement. And that I find to be powerful. Oftentimes you don't even realize you're doing it, but it is absolutely crucial to be that person who never says, that's too much on my plate. You have to be that person that says, give me another plate, put some more on there. I'm going to finish this and I'm going to move on to that plate. And then I'm going to share this with someone else and I'm going to make a difference. And that is pretty much what to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You said you hit the nail on the head, Ms. Ross, about young people and your love for your love for people is infectious. Let me be honest with you. And this is not because you're on screen with me. I tell this to people, everybody I know. That's why everybody I know that's somebody, I give them you. I don't know anybody, especially in DC. You gotta talk to Ms. Ross, but your love of young people is important. But not only that, you sit on a lot of different boards and distinguish things that you do, but you're concerned about the community's health, the community's mental health. Let's talk about that, and let's talk about UHMP as well and your involvement there, in that type of space, please.
Okay. Well, UHMP stands for the Urban Health Media Project, and I had the good fortune of meeting the CEO, Jane O'Donnell, who wanted to be involved in the community with young people to help them to write about things that were important to them. She's a journalist, a retired journalist in USA Today. And more important than just writing, but writing about health concerns, be it nutrition, be it mental health, be it, the lack of transportation in certain areas, and how food insecurity can affect your mental health. So Jane, I was so inspired, by hearing her share her vision, that I just could not say no when she asked me, one, to be a part of the organization, but she asked me to chair the board of directors.
Right.
And so it's been fantastic because she's given me the freedom to have thoughts, independent thoughts, to recruit board members who are like-minded, as well as those who are not like-minded, because all perspectives matter. It's to me, the greatest opportunity to help these young people right now thrive and use their voices and use their pens and their computers to speak, not to sound cliche, but to speak their truth, because it is theirs and no one can write your story. You have to write your own story. But my biggest hope is that we change generations going forward, that we stop generational trauma and conflict, right, and that we heal as a community, that we heal as a people, that we heal as a world, because we can do it.
Definitely. We can, and I do believe that. And I believe change constitutes from change from women. Women all over the world give us so many different leaders, opportunities, entrepreneurs, elected officials. I love being from a woman. I love being from my mother, and she is one of my biggest supporters and advocates for me, and she will always be that for me. I want to talk to you about 3 women that are close to you that you looked up to as champions, whether it be in your family or just women you looked up in general. But give me 3 champions that were impactful to your life growing up.
I'd have to say, growing up, I come from a family of just 3 siblings, but my mom had 10 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
There were 6 girls altogether. Wow. And every one of my aunts, grew up in an era, in a time where women had a particular place in life. But my grandfather, allowed his daughters, within reason, to spread their wings. And so my aunts moved about the country, opened companies, drapery businesses, worked long careers in the culinary arts.
Wow.
They were all over the map, and I just admired them. That they were career women, without being labeled as a career woman. They were also mothers. They were raising families. They were members of churches, so they were part of their church community, and they were just setting an example for what is right, what is a woman, what you can be, what you are, and what you can dream to be. So my aunts were probably, along with my mom, because they all, were cut from the same cloth, would have been my very first, women mentors. When I moved to Washington, D.C., I was the manager for the women's basketball team at Howard University. Wow. And the woman who was there, who made the most impact on me, was the basketball coach. Her name was Sonia Tyler. Sonia J stands for Juanita Tyler. She was a single mom. She had maybe a 3-year-old at the time, and she coached the women's basketball team at Howard by herself. She was fearless. She took the women to the MEAC championship within her first 3 years of being the coach. She leaned on me. She told me, and she led by example, and so I felt like we were a team. She respected me and I respected her immensely. I learned so very much from Coach Tyler that I still, I can see her face, I can hear her life, or I can hear her laugh. And whenever I'd say something to her, I can remember her response. She'd always say, "Oh, no question, you can do that." So that has stuck with me. And when I'd say, "Coach Tyler, can we do such and such?" She'd say, "In a New York minute." So those two phrases have stuck out with me as a woman who was determined, who was, forthright, forthcoming, pulled no punches, and got it done. And she's still one of the greatest examples that I have today. Another woman who I love dearly and who I keep saying I want to be like when I grow up is a woman by the name of Lucille Hester. Nobody knows how old Miss Hester is. Nobody knows, any of those secrets, but she's done everything and she can do all things. And she continues to amaze me. She, when I was the athletic director and a counselor at Hardy Middle School. Little did I know that she was also the president of the Pigskin Club, the men's football club at Howard University. She is friends with every NFL coach there is. She goes to the NFL draft every year.
Wow.
You'll say, "Miss Hester, we need to have so-and-so." And the next thing you know, she's telling me stories about having been the coach for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and how very little athletic ability he had back then. And how she'd always try to get him to get in the game. She's been super, super supportive. She has helped me with motherhood because I have boys. Right. She had girls, but she knows how to walk among men, women, everybody. And so I aspire to live like Lucille, who I can't even find her. She might be scuba diving somewhere, because this pandemic has meant nothing to her. Miss Hester is a force of nature, and I love her dearly as well.
You're a force of nature too, but I know with every force of nature, there always are some obstacles that stand in your path. You've been in so many different publications. You've been studied. You've been written about. You've been interviewed countless times about your role as the District of Columbia's, I'm going to say, #1 top public defender for countless years. You've had an amazing journey in law and helping people. But that probably comes with a lot of obstacles. Talk about, as a woman of color, some things that you might have faced as challenges in your role as you ascended up the ranks.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for calling me the #1, but that label is misapplied to me. I stand on the shoulders of so many powerful, amazing, committed women who supported me from the very, very beginning of my career. Washington, D.C. is unique in some ways, but it's also very much, the status quo in a lot of ways. In that the judiciary, when I first came to Washington, D.C., this was known as Chocolate City. Right. And so the judiciary, the people in the courtrooms, the judges, those were people of color. Those were the people who I looked up to, and the ones who set the example to let me see that, if I could see it, I could be it. Absolutely. I work for the Public Defender Service of the District of Columbia, which is the premier public defender service in the land, I think. And so it's that agency that allowed me to thrive, if you will. It's the support from every director I've worked under, all of my colleagues, all of my clients who had faith in me as a person who cared, because that's really what the bottom line is. You have to care. And my mantra has always been, I will represent you the way you represent, where I would want to be represented. And so that's how I walk into every meeting with a client, first time around. So while, there may be some obstacles, there may be a little bit of sort of gender bias, my obligation has always been to my client. And as long as I can, let him or her know that we are the only two people in the world at that time, the obstacles disappear because my focus is on that client, because that's what I would want.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Ross, let me extend that a little bit based upon, law and what's going on in our current climate of the world. Black Lives Matter. We've seen the insurrection. We've seen just so many things happening with our changing of our world. With somebody like yourself being in law and being in a place of support, where do we go from here? Like, what's your take on it? I'm just curious.
Well, this has been a hard year, but frankly, it's this trauma that we've been experiencing collectively as the world has been going on much longer. So I'm very, very sad about the loss of George Floyd's life. I'm sad as well for his daughter who lost her father. Had to, maybe she hasn't seen the videos, but at some point she'll grow up and she'll have to reflect on, the savage way that her father passed away. But I think she's got a lot of people supporting her, not just her immediate family, but she has the world. So I'm very comforted and hopeful and optimistic with the new administration's very diverse cabinet members and very progressive attitudes about Black lives, and that they do matter, and that we as a country are going to get there. Everybody may not get there together, but we are going to have to face the fact and reckon with that we are all equal, that we cannot survive one without the other, that we need each other, and that this skin that we're all, wrapped in, whatever the color, it's just a label. It's the underneath that matters. And so we have got to let our insides direct what happens on the outside.
Ms. Ross recently shared within the last year or so some traumatic things that happened to her in her lifetime, and she's very gone public with that. And just to help her story help so many people through some dark times. What would you say Ms. Ross was there for you in a difficult moment of your life's journey that she was able to help you with?
I can think of one major thing, even though she helps me day to day, like just, she's that one person I can call. And it's funny because she was sick a couple years ago in the hospital. I think you knew her then, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally was there, I think, every day. I lived right down the street. Whether I lived down the street or not, I would have been there. But all the nurses, until they got to know me, they're like, "Oh, are you her daughter?" They were a little confused, but they still asked the question. I'm like, "No, I'm her best friend, or one of them. You didn't know." So yeah, so her helping me, I think, was just realizing like how strong I am and how what's the best word to use? Like how deserving I was to move on from a relationship that was not suiting me, that was not in, any way benefiting me or my son at all. And just her allowing me, it wasn't like in a pushy way, just her allowing me to take my time. But at the same time, when I was ready to go, she was right there behind me, like 1,000%. When she was sick, when she wasn't. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better person to like kind of just tell me everything's okay when you think like it's all going to shit.
Miss Rosalinda, she's walked me through so many periods of my life, even though I've only known her about 8 years now. I think it's been really powerful and meaningful to me personally, how she's been through so many transitional phases in my life, moments of me being a sophomore and in student government and really passionate about service and serving my community, but not knowing how to channel that necessarily, or feeling like, having all these dreams and hopes, but of even being a lawyer and not having known a lawyer, and her being willing to step in and making herself so accessible to me and really making me feel important, even as a 14, 15-year-old, all the way through college applications.
Mhm.
And once again, not knowing what that next step looked like, because, a few in my immediate circle had gone through that process. Once again, encouraging me and cheering me on in the process. And like I've reflected on before, definitely not holding her connections and her other friendships back in that.
Mhm.
So, and then I'd move on to even college. There are nights when, during my freshman year, being in a small, New England college, and sort of in the outskirts of Boston, and very much different from what I grew up around or the sort of environment I was used to, and having to address difficult conversations, whether in class or what was happening in the city or in our world, and feeling like I didn't know how to reconcile with that. And I knew I could call her even at 10 p.m. and say, I am so frustrated with the state of affairs. I feel like helpless, and her reminding me we have work to do, but you need to get some rest, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and all those moments. I think even all the way up to now, as I'm closing out my undergraduate years, I think it's an accumulation of how she has been with me and alongside me through different moments, because truly I don't believe that Roz could ever just be present for one moment alone. She is the type of force that is consistent, that is steadfast, and she is a true role model. And I tell her this all the time. I want to be to younger folks, young women, in the same light, and I hope to, in the way that she's been for me. I don't know how that's possible, right? But it's something that I strive for, because her consistency is incredible. Her support is relentless. So I think those would be some of those glimpses that I would reflect on to answer that question.
Definitely, Saba. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit, Ms. Roz, if we could, because in your chronicles of being interviewed, you've been very candid about abuse that happens as well. I'm going to pull back the curtain and be very transparent with myself as a person who went through abuse as a child himself at an early age. It's something that I've had to battle and overcome. You've been a boisterous person. You've helped so many. And I know for our young girls who are going to be watching this and going to be looking at your story, just give some gems and some jewels at some things that have been impactful to help you to not only cross over, obviously continue to live your life, though it's still hurt and it's still traumatic, things that you've done to cope and how you bear with it and how you also share your story and you be candid with it.
Absolutely. And so the story that you're referring to is one that I shared, during the pandemic. We all are home, we're all isolated, and like it or not, we all have a lot of time for self-reflection. And I could not stop reflecting on what happened to me, sexual abuse as a young child, as I think about all the children that were trapped at home during this pandemic, doing virtual school, potentially with their abusers. My abuser was a cousin. I was 6 years old and I was sexually abused and assaulted by him and a friend of his for about 2 years. And it only stopped when my grandmother sort of caught him in the act. The police were called. I went to the hospital. I was evaluated. I remember talking to a prosecutor, pressing charges, but I really don't remember anything after that. I don't know if this cousin was prosecuted. I don't think I ever saw him again until my adult life. And that just gave me a flashback that it really was unfinished business. Back in the day, I didn't have therapy. I didn't have counseling because frankly, back then, Black people did not really focus or see the value of counseling. You went to church, you prayed about it,
Yes.
you kept it at home, you didn't want to stir things up. And, you know, the real bottom line was she'll grow out of it. She'll get over it. Well, she did, but she didn't. You know, it was that experience that sort of shaped my youth, where I tried to, you know, cover this by being a debutante, by being a bluebird, by playing basketball, by playing softball. Because if I stayed busy enough, I wouldn't have time to think about it. And then, you know, here it is. I hit the pandemic hits, and it makes me reflect on the fact that when I went to Howard University, I was ill-equipped to have the kind of healthy relationships that my peers were having as freshmen. You know, as sophomores and juniors, I was going to class, going to hide in the bathroom between classes so that I could then go to my next class and then go back to my room. I just didn't participate because I thought people could see that I was damaged. You know, it wasn't until I took a year and I went to Spain. I wanted to become fluent in Spanish, which I did. I went to a place where nobody knew me, so nobody could see the shame, the scorn, or anything. Right. And people actually loved me in Spain. They called me La Morena, which means, you know, the dark-skinned person. And I actually their legend was I would bring them good luck by passing through their stores. First thing in the morning, they were going to have a good day of sales. And so I wore that, you know, that badge, you know, with honor, that here comes La Morena and it's about to happen for you. You know, fast forward, I come back to the United States and I decide, you know, I want to go to law school. And I had to wait for a little while, work and save some money, but I realized nothing was going to stop me from going. You know, so it brings to mind, you know, a couple of sayings that people have told me, you know, I can't take credit for them, but, you know, someone told me to bloom where you're planted. You know, you're never going to have a perfect life. Seeds, I'm sure many of you have seen a dandelion or another kind of flower growing through the cracks of a sidewalk, because that's where it fell. So just because you're in the cracks of a sidewalk doesn't mean you have to, you know, you have to shame yourself and you have to not expose your beauty to the world. You're beautiful wherever you grow.
Absolutely.
You know, something someone else told me is that you must always, you know, use the helping hand at the end of your wrist. You know, use that hand to raise it, to dial a number, to reach back and pull somebody else along with you. It will change your life. I promise you.
Definitely, definitely.
I also want to just share that I recently had the opportunity to sit on a Zoom call with Stacey Abrams. Wow. She is my hero. She is who I want to be when I grow up, but I realize I'm gonna have to grow backwards, but nonetheless, I want to be there. And her advice, one of the panelists that was on the call asked her, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self? And I will never forget, she said, do not edit your life for the comfort of someone else. So young ladies out there, if you've got dreams, if you've got aspirations, Miss Abrams said, do not wait and let somebody tell you it's not the time. It's always the time. Don't stand back, take space, but also make space and realize your dreams. And as you're doing it, realize that you're just a small, you know, ion in the universe, that there's millions of more ions that form atoms, you know, that form things. And before you know it, we have a world that we're all a part of.
La Morena, gracias.
La Morena.
You helped me with my wealth in my store. Like when you passed through, you are the Midas. You got the good touch. Which is crazy because on my notes here, one of the questions is, what would Miss Ross tell her 16-year-old self?
Oh, wow.
So let's have at it. Go ahead.
Shine. I was going to say shine. Do not dim your light for the purpose of, you know, somebody else being blinded by your light. You know, another saying that my sister and I, who I, you know, love and admire so much, is do not set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Definitely. So keep your flame within you. And as you decide to, you know, as you heat up and you spontaneously combust, people are naturally going to get warm, but you don't have to do it for their benefit. Absolutely. So I believe in sort of prophesizing who you want to be, where you want to be. Believe in vision boards. Believe in setting up, you know, a timeline for yourself, but do not get discouraged if everything on the timeline doesn't come to pass. life is a series of twists and turns. You know, sometimes you have to do detours, sometimes it takes you backwards, but you can always go forward if you make that choice. You know, so I would say to my 16-year-old self, whatever it is you want to do, it can happen. Get yourself a mentor. Mentors are, to me, besides their parents, the most important people in the world, because many of the mentors you choose have walked that path. They've already, you know, told you don't have to touch the stove because it's hot. I've touched it. You know, you're going to touch it anyway, but at least that mentor is going to say, I told you so, but let's move on. So absolutely. Mentors matter.
Absolutely. You are invaluable. You talking to Stacey? See, this is what I'm telling y'all. She is the real life Olivia Pope. There is no way around it. She knows everybody. She connects and she saves people. I'm telling y'all. Where your lasso at, Wonder Woman? You got a lasso with you? Let me stop messing with Miss Roz. Miss Roz, I got 3 more questions because I know you're very busy, but you know, getting involved, you're a champion of people. You love people to the heart, to your core. But let's talk sports for a second. You know, being involved, because you've always been involved, like I said earlier, as a child, and just always been a part of so many just different things, and that's to the facet of who you are. But how important is it for us to look to our young ladies to level the playing field, literally, so young ladies can be a part of sports collegiately, professionally? How much attention do we need to continue and make pathways for young ladies to realize their dream and want to be professionals and be involved with sports? And definitely think about the things that, you know, the WPBA is doing.
You know, I thank you for that question. You know, one of the things that I do here in the District of Columbia is I am the chairwoman of the DC State Athletics Commission.
Yes, you are.
I was fortunate enough to be asked to join a team of very, very committed, you know, individuals to write the rules that govern high school athletics here in the District of Columbia. And in the end, I was appointed by the mayor. I was elected chair among my peers. I'm very, very humbled and proud about that. The one thing I would say about young ladies in sports, I would have to direct this comment to, you know, our male counterparts and tell them that there's enough room, there's enough space for all of us. Yeah. By sharing with us, you lose nothing. Yeah. Because we need each other in order to make this world, this life go on. You know, our men are very, very talented. We support them. We will always support them. And likewise, that's what young ladies need from our men and from other young ladies as well. You know, there is nothing that a young lady can't do, given the support, given the authority, given the blessings of those around her. There are many Simone Biles out there. There are many, you know, young Katie Ledecky. Yes, and, you know, there's another, you know, Florence Joyner out there somewhere. And those women are here because someone believed in them, someone supported them, someone continues to tell them they can do it. But most important, the young ladies believe it. So young ladies, believe in yourself. You will make the team. You will, you know, pitch a no-hitter. You will get recruited. All of those things that you want them enough to work hard enough for them and go out there and take them.
Definitely. I appreciate that, Ms. Ross. If you could give Ms. Ross one thing, what would it be?
I would say make her indestructible, but she is already indestructible.
That is true.
What would I give her? I don't know. I think I would just want her to know, like, how much she does for everyone else, because I don't think she believes it. And so many people around her can tell her. And just, we kind of share this relationship where sometimes even with just each other, we're like, but do we really do that? You know, like, it's like almost like, you know, everyone has that insecurity. And it's not that she's insecure at all, but I feel like she really doesn't know her worth in terms of, going back to your first question, like connecting everyone and just making sure they're like on the path to be successful. Like, that is really her superpower. And I don't necessarily 100% think that she actually believes that she can do all that magic, which she totally does.
Instantly, a mirror comes to mind. Of course, I'd love to give her the world and anything else that she could possibly want. I think anyone who knows her, because she has such a giving and sacrificial heart, there's no way you don't want to give that to her, you know? But I'm pretty sure she wouldn't really care for those things, right? And instantly I think of a mirror because I don't think she realizes what an impact she's had on other people's lives. And I could speak for myself. She has moved mountains for me, and I get so emotional.
Okay.
Yeah, since the moment I've met her, she's just been incredibly constant and yeah, just an incredible person in my life. And so I want her to know and realize the magnitude of who she is. And she didn't just appear this way. She chose kindness over hate. She chose to give up her time and show up for every milestone in my life, even like the smallest things you wouldn't think. And so I want her to have a mirror, like a mirror, not just to see how beautiful she is, but really for her to recognize in that image all the thoughts and feelings and gratitude and appreciation that everyone who knows her can feel about her. So that would be my gift to her.
One of your fellow Bisons became the first woman of color as a vice president for the United States of America. I want you to tell us where you were when she was on the steps of the Capitol building and raised her right hand, but not only tell us where you were, but the sensations or thoughts or things that went through your mind when you're able to see that visually for the first time in our history, but not only talk about the organization that you're a part of that helps bring things like that to fruition as well.
Well, I think you're speaking about the educational foundation of the Women's National Democratic Club, which is an organization 100 years old that exists solely to support democratic principles and to support women. And so I've been involved there with the educational foundation for a couple of years now. I cannot tell you the joy and the glee that we all felt seeing a woman being named as the Vice President of the United States.
Yes.
But I think even more proud is that she is a fellow Bison.
Yes.
She is also from the West Coast where I am. She's in the legal field. She's a woman of color, and she's representing all the United States, not just the Bisons, not just the Californians, not just Black people, not just Asian people, but everyone. So on the day of the inauguration, I watched it. Of course, because of COVID, we could not be there, but I can't tell you how many photos I took of my TV screen, just so that I would have this memory, so that I'd be able to share it with my granddaughters and other young women and people in the future, because this was historic. It's magical. It's her time. It's her walking in her calling. This was destiny. It was meant to be. And so I could not be more proud and more thrilled that came to pass. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Man, Ms. Roz, this has been impactful. This has been great. Thank you so much for being a part of the Heart of the Champion series presented by the WPBA. But before we go, I have one more final question. Mm-hmm. As a dream chaser, as a person who is a champion, someone who watches goals, what is left for you to do? What would you like to see yourself do before this lifetime is over?
I have always wanted to write a book. And so that is on my to-do list. I realized that, if I don't get off the porch, that it's always just going to be a book stuck in my head, and I won't realize that. So that is really something that I truly want to do. I would also love to have a job where all I did is go around and talk to young people and, people who want to hear from me and get paid for it. Not that I need a lot of money, because I don't. I am, on the upside of the hill, but I will soon be going down the hill. So my needs are not great in terms of, finances and all that. What finances I do get my hands on, I want to share. I want to provide them nonprofit groups. I want to provide scholarships. I want to give somebody a chance that, but for the money, they would be able to do whatever it is they want to do, whatever dream they have. I want to support families. Those things I think that unless we collectively support those things and young people, I don't know what the future is going to look like.
Right.
So if I could write a book, share wealth with, those who need it, encourage people to do the same, my life would be fulfilled. My life would totally be fulfilled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, all good things must come to an end. But listen, this last 40 minutes has been impeccable, Miss Roz, and I know this is going to be history making. And I wanted to let you know that it was important for us to kick things off with you because your story is so unique. We're so grateful for you today. We're indebted to you because you are a genuine person, a person who does love people, who is just so selfless. So thank you, Miss Roz, for all that you do for so many different people. Let me be the first to say this, and I know I'm speaking for so many others. We really, really appreciate you. Now,
I can't thank you enough for saying that. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great interview with none other than Miss Rosalind Overstreet Gonzalez. She's a part of our Heart of a Champion series. Listen, if you want to make sure you catch this one and so many others, please make sure you check us out, www.thewpba.com, for all of our Heart of a Champion series champions and everybody that we'll be showcasing. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is TJ Baker, the official host and ambassador. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.